The basement door slammed shut with a finality that made my heart stop. I heard the key turn in the lock, followed by my father's footsteps retreating up the stairs. "It's for your own good, Olivia," he called down, his voice eerily calm. "Maybe 3 days down there will teach you to respect our rules." I'm Olivia Martinez, 23, and this wasn't the first time I'd been locked in our basement, but it would be the last. The darkness was absolute, save for the thin strip of light beneath the door. The concrete floor felt ice-cold beneath me, and the musty air filled my lungs with each shaky breath. My crime? I'd been caught talking to my therapist, Dr. Morgan, about our family matters. In the Martinez household, everything stayed within the family. Every bruise, every punishment, every lesson was our secret to keep. My parents had made that clear since I was young. This time, Dad found the appointment card in my jacket pocket during their weekly room inspection. My father had exploded, ranting about betrayal and family loyalty. My mother stood by, wringing her hands but saying nothing, her usual response to his rage. "How dare you talk to strangers about our private affairs?" he had shouted, his face inches from mine. After everything we've done for you, I hadn't fought back when he grabbed my arm and dragged me toward the basement. Experience had taught me that resistance only made things worse. My younger sister, Anna, watched from the top of the stairs, her eyes wide with fear, but her mouth firmly shut. Now, sitting in the darkness, I pulled my knees to my chest and tried to steady my breathing. Dr. Morgan had warned me this might happen. "Your parents show classic signs of controlling behavior," she'd said during our last session. "If they discover you're seeking help, they might escalate." She'd given me her personal cell number, programmed into my phone under a fake contact name. My phone was now upstairs, probably being searched by my father, but he wouldn't find anything suspicious. I'd learned to be careful. The basement had a small bathroom. My parents weren't completely cruel, and a water bottle that would have to last me 3 days. No food, though. Fasting builds character, my father always said during these punishments. Hours passed, marked only by the changing intensity of that thin strip of light under the door. I heard movement upstairs, muffled voices, the sound of daily life continuing as if nothing was wrong, as if locking your adult daughter in the basement was perfectly normal. Around what I guessed was dinner time, I heard my Aunt Maria's voice upstairs. She often came for Sunday dinner, playing the role of the perfect extended family. "Where's Olivia?" I heard her ask. "She's not feeling well," my mother's voice replied, practiced in deception. "She's resting in her room." But Aunt Maria must have known something was wrong. Later, I heard her arguing with my father, their voices carrying through the basement vents. "James, this has to stop. She's not a child anymore. Stay out of it, Maria. We know what's best for our daughter. She's 23, for God's sake. You can't keep doing this. Our family, our rules. Don't interfere." Later that night, I heard soft footsteps on the basement stairs. "Olivia?" Anna's whisper carried through the door. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," I whispered back, pressing my hand against the cold wood. "Don't let them catch you down here. Aunt Maria's really upset. She threatened to call someone, but Dad said he'd cut her off from the family if she did." That was my father's ultimate weapon, the threat of exile. It had kept our relatives quiet for years, all of them choosing to look the other way rather than risk being cut off from the family. "Just go back upstairs," I told Anna. "I'll be okay." As her footsteps faded away, I thought about Dr. Morgan. During our sessions, she'd helped me see how abnormal my family's behavior was, how the constant control and punishment weren't signs of love, but of abuse. She'd been helping me plan an escape, setting up a support system for when I was ready to leave. I hadn't been ready then, but lying on the cold basement floor, listening to my family pretend everything was normal, I knew I couldn't live like this anymore. What my parents didn't know was that Dr. Morgan and I had set up a safety protocol. If I missed our appointment without calling to reschedule, she would know something was wrong. I had one scheduled for tomorrow morning. As I curled up on the thin blanket I found in the corner, I thought about all the times I'd accepted this treatment, believing I deserved it, believing it was normal. Dr. Morgan's words echoed in my mind. "You're not crazy, Olivia. What they're doing isn't love. It's control, and you deserve better. The basement's darkness felt different now. Instead of feeling like a punishment, it felt like a waiting room. Tomorrow would come, and with it, perhaps my chance at freedom. I just had to survive one more night in the dark. The sound of police sirens jolted me awake. Through my groggy haze, I heard heavy footsteps upstairs, followed by my father's raised voice. "This is ridiculous. We have the right to discipline our daughter as we see fit." My heart raced. Dr. Morgan had followed through. She'd known something was wrong when I missed my morning appointment. "Sir, we received a credible report of domestic abuse," a firm voice responded. "We need to see your daughter, Olivia Martinez." "She's not here," my mother interjected, her voice trembling. "She's staying with friends." "Then you wouldn't mind if we check the premises." "You need a warrant," my father shouted. "Actually, sir, given the nature of the report and the immediate concern for safety, we don't. Please step aside." Footsteps moved through the house. I heard doors opening, voices calling my name. Then, finally, they checked the basement. The key rattled in the lock, and suddenly, light flooded the space. I squinted, shielding my eyes as two police officers descended the stairs. Behind them, I could see my parents' faces, a mix of fury and fear. "Miss Martinez," one officer knelt beside me while the other radioed for medical assistance. "I'm Officer Torres. Can you tell me how long you've been down here?" "2 days," I managed, my voice hoarse. "Since Sunday afternoon." She needed time to think about her behavior. My father called down. "We're her parents. We have the right." Officer Torres turned to his partner. "Get them out of here now." As they led my parents upstairs, I heard my mother crying, playing the role of the distraught parent. My father was still protesting, threatening to call his lawyer. The paramedics arrived quickly, checking my vitals and helping me up the stairs on shaky legs. In the living room, I saw Anna huddled in a corner, tears streaming down her face. Aunt Maria stood nearby, her expression a mix of guilt and relief. "I'm so sorry, Olivia," she whispered as I passed. "I should have done something sooner." Outside, neighbors had gathered to watch as my parents were placed in separate police cars. Mrs. Peterson from next door covered her mouth in shock. She'd known our family for years, but, like everyone else, had chosen to believe the perfect family facade. At the hospital, Dr. Morgan was waiting. She rushed forward as they wheeled me in, her professional demeanor cracking slightly as she saw my condition. "I knew something was wrong when you missed our appointment," she said, walking alongside the gurney. "Your father's messages about you being away didn't add up." The hospital staff documented everything: the dehydration, the bruises on my arms from being dragged to the basement, the impact of 3 days without food. Each piece of evidence built a case that could no longer be ignored or explained away. Detective Sanders arrived while they were treating me. She was gentle but thorough, recording my statement about not just this incident but years of similar punishments. "Your sister Anna called us too," she said, showing me her notepad. "She's been keeping a diary of everything." Smart girl. I felt a surge of pride mixed with concern for my little sister. Will she be okay? "She's with your Aunt Maria for now. Child Services is involved, but given her age and your aunt's willingness to take custody, she should be fine." As I lay in the hospital bed that night, my phone buzzed with messages from relatives. Some were supportive, finally free from my father's threats to speak their truth. Others condemned me for destroying the family. Cousin Michael. We all knew something was wrong, but we were too scared to help. "I'm sorry, Olivia." Uncle Pete. "How could you do this to your parents? Family matters should stay private." Aunt Sarah. "Your father controlled us all with fear. You're so brave for breaking free." The most surprising message came from my mother's sister, Aunt Teresa. "I left your Uncle Robert for the same reasons 20 years ago. Your father convinced everyone I was crazy. I've been waiting for someone to finally expose the truth." Dr. Morgan visited again before heading home. She sat beside my bed, her presence calming as always. "You'll need protection," she said firmly. "They'll try to minimize this, try to make you doubt yourself, but we have evidence now and witnesses. You're not alone anymore." I nodded, feeling both exhausted and somehow lighter than I had in years. The facade had finally cracked. The perfect family image shattered by reality. What happens now? I asked. Now, she said, squeezing my hand, you start living your life on your own terms. 6 months later, I stood in my new apartment, watching the sunset through windows that had no bars, no locks, no rules about when they could be opened. The restraining order against my parents still hung on my fridge, a reminder that freedom sometimes comes with painful choices. The court case had been brutal. My father hired expensive lawyers who tried to paint me as a troubled daughter, making up stories for attention, but they couldn't explain away the evidence. Anna's diary, the hospital records, and most damaging of all, the videos. It turned out my sister hadn't just been keeping a diary. She'd been secretly recording our father's disciplinary sessions on her phone for the past year. The footage of him dragging me to the basement, of previous punishments, of his threats to other family members, it all came out in court. The defendant showed a systematic pattern of abuse and control, the judge had said during sentencing. This court sentences James Martinez to 5 years in prison. My mother got probation and mandatory counseling. She'd finally broken down on the witness stand, admitting to her role in the abuse. I was afraid, she'd sobbed. He said he'd take the girls away if I ever opposed him. The family split into factions after the trial. Some, like Aunt Maria and Anna, stood firmly by my side. Others, mostly those who benefited from my father's financial control over the years, branded me a traitor. But the most surprising change came from within our community. Mrs. Peterson, our neighbor of 15 years, started a support group for families dealing with domestic abuse. We can't be silent observers anymore, she'd said in a local newspaper interview. Olivia's story showed us what happens when we look the other way. My phone buzzed. A message from Anna. She was thriving in her senior year of high school, living with Aunt Maria. The counseling sessions were helping her process everything, and she'd even started a student advocacy group for abuse survivors. Movie night still on? Her text read. Aunt Teresa's bringing her famous lasagna. Aunt Teresa had moved back to town after the trial. Years of isolation had ended when my father's control over the family finally broke. She'd become one of my strongest supporters, helping me navigate life after abuse. Dr. Morgan still saw me weekly, but now our sessions focused on healing and growth rather than survival. You're not just surviving anymore, Olivia, she'd said in our last session. You're building a life. The doorbell rang, Anna and Aunt Teresa arriving for our weekly family dinner. These gatherings were different from the tense, controlled family meals of our past. Here, laughter was allowed. Opinions could be shared. No one watched the clock in fear. I brought extra, Aunt Teresa announced, holding up 2 casserole dishes. Your cousin Sarah and her kids might join us. She finally left Greg last week. Another family member finding courage, following the path I helped clear. Sarah had called me late one night, asking how I'd found the strength to break free. You showed us it was possible, she'd said. As we set the table, no assigned seats, no rigid rules, Anna showed me her college acceptance letter, a full scholarship to study psychology. I want to help people like us, she explained. Like Dr. Morgan helped you. My mother had tried to contact me last month, sending letters through her counselor. She was making progress, they said, understanding the damage she caused through her passive acceptance of abuse. Part of me wanted to read those letters, to believe she could change. But I wasn't ready. Healing had its own timeline, and I was learning to honor mine. The apartment filled with the smell of lasagna and the sound of family, real family, bound by love and choice rather than fear and obligation. Aunt Maria arrived with dessert, and Cousin Michael dropped by with his boyfriend, no longer having to hide his relationship from my father's judgment. Looking around at these smiling faces, I remembered those dark hours in the basement. I thought I was alone then, but I'd never truly been alone. There had always been people waiting to help, Dr. Morgan, Anna, Aunt Teresa, even neighbors like Mrs. Peterson. They just needed someone to take the first step, to break the silence. My phone buzzed again. A message from Detective Sanders. She'd become a friend over the months, helping other families escape similar situations. Got another case, she wrote. Would you be willing to talk to someone? Your story gives people hope. I looked at my family gathered around the dinner table, all of them survivors and supporters in their own ways. Yes, I texted back. Tell them they're not alone. Because that's what breaking free taught me. Silence protects abusers. Speaking out protects families, real families, built on love and trust, not fear and control. The basement was just a room now, a dark memory that had lost its power to frighten me. I'd learned the most important lesson. Sometimes, the greatest act of love for your family is refusing to keep their secrets.